So I'll start by calling the meeting to order. It is Tuesday, April 11, 2023. It's 6 p.m. and we're in the council chambers of the city of Platteville. And this is the regular scheduled meeting of the Common Council. As we start tonight, I would ask all of us to have a moment of silence tonight. We mourn today with the folks in Chautauqua and in Cameron, who over the weekend lost 2 police officers in the line of duty. One was 23, I think the other one was 27, making a routine traffic stop. I know that our police department is hurting, and let us remember these people. Thank you. And Chief McKinley has told me that a member of our force will be attending when there are funerals. So thank you. All right, Candace will do roll call.
Eileen Nichols.
Here.
Kathy Kopp.
Here.
Jason Arts.
Here.
Lynn Parrott.
Here.
Todd Casper.
Here.
Barbara Doss.
Here.
Ken Killian.
Here.
Okay, the first order of business tonight is to recognize our outgoing council person. So, Miss Council Person. For those in the audience, there is a little cake left if you want, if you would so desire. So this is recognition of Alderperson Eileen Nichols for her outstanding service and dedication to the city of Platteville. Whereas Eileen Nichols chose UW-Platteville to pursue her education goals after graduating from high school in Dodgeville. And whereas Eileen completed her undergraduate degree and married a fellow alumnus. And whereas Eileen and Tom have made Platteville their home since their student days, choosing to pursue their personal and professional goals as residents of Platteville, including raising their children, Ben and Corey. And whereas Eileen has been a community volunteer serving many organizations, including the Girl Scouts, Platteville Quota Club, the Optimist Club, the Platteville Chamber, the Platteville Main Street Program, the Platteville Community Fund, the PHS Scholarship Fund, and Inspiring Community. And whereas Eileen was initially elected to the Common Council in April of 1996 and has served continuously since that time, including 9 years as council president and untold years as council pro tem. And whereas Eileen has worked diligently with a myriad of city boards, commissions, and committees to advance the city and its strategic initiatives, including industrial and housing development, downtown improvements, including the streetscape and library, facilities for public safety, namely police and fire, and expanded parks and recreation, including the Aquatic Center. And whereas Eileen has represented Platteville on the boards of Southwest Wisconsin Technical College, Grant County Economic Development, the Southwest Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, and the League of Wisconsin Municipalities. Now, therefore, I, Barb Dawes, Council President of the City of Platteville, on behalf of the Common Council and city employees, both past and present, do hereby wish to express our sincere appreciation to Eileen for her dedication and service to our city.
Well, if somebody had told me I was going to do this for 27 years, I would have probably said, probably not. But as I said earlier, to some people who are here, for some odd reason, I love city government. I don't know why that happened, but it did. So I would like to thank my family. My husband, Tom, is here. Our children live, one in Japan and one in Germany right now. And so they couldn't make this meeting. But I would like to thank them for their support all these years, and especially when we were talking about something we were going to do, and then I'd raise my hand and say, wait, I have a meeting. So the family was really important. I really, really want to recognize this evening all city employees. You see these people sitting over here, they're always at these council meetings, but there are so many more people. that are doing the daily work to keep this city organized. The work gets done, and honestly, probably a lot of us don't even notice it. So it takes a lot of people, it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of management to really, really run a city. So please, the next time you see a city employee, say thank you. It's not my fault that I'm here this evening. It's the fault of all the people who voted for me all those years. But in all honesty, I thank them because I wouldn't be in that chair if it wasn't for all those people. So I do appreciate that. And I have to say that this council up here and all the people that served on the council before, I also admire them because they are giving of their time. They care as much as I do. And the other people that I would recognize in our community are what I call the dreamers. So for me, it started with a skate park. There's like a group saying, we need a skate park for those kids. It's like, okay, who's going to do that? So they did. Now they worked with the city to accomplish it. But just think of what's been accomplished since then because of dreamers. We had the dog park. We have the Veterans Memorial. We have the Firemen's Memorial. We have the trail. We have Brodsky Center. We have the pickleball court and the inclusive playground. And I may be missing something. But the donors and the volunteers in the city all work together to make those dreams come true. And that's what makes me feel really good about the city. So I hope that continues because I think it's a great city to live in. I really love it. Thank you.
It's also National Library Week. So we have a National Library Week proclamation. Whereas libraries provide the opportunity for everyone to pursue their passions and engage in lifelong learning, allowing them to live their best life. And whereas libraries have long served as trusted institution for all members of the community, regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or socioeconomic status. And whereas libraries strive to develop and maintain programs and collections that are as diverse as the populations they serve and ensure equity of access for all. And whereas libraries adapt to the ever-changing needs of their communities, continually expanding their collection services and partnerships. And whereas libraries play a critical role in the economic vitality of communities by providing internet and technology access, literacy skills, and support for job seekers, small businesses, and entrepreneurs. And whereas libraries are cornerstones of democracy, promoting the free exchange of information and ideas for all, whereas libraries, librarians, and library workers are joining library supporters and advocates across the nation to celebrate National Library Week. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Platteville proclaim National Library Week, April 23 to 29, 2023. During this week, residents are encouraged to visit their library to explore the wealth of resources available. And our final presentation tonight, prior to the beginning of the meeting, is the 2022 Platteville Incubator Annual Report. And so, Kate, we welcome you to the podium.
Credit for you.
You bet.
All right, very good. Well, I will, very good. Thank you. Thank you. You're good. You still get prizes. Thank you for your time this evening, and thank you, council and to the city. My name is Kate Cozio, and I'm the executive director of the Incubator. We do have information. I'll leave these on the back table, so feel free to learn more. So the Platteville Business Incubator has been around for 21 years, not quite as long as Eileen and her great service, but it really provides a springboard for local businesses, and the council is very supportive of the incubator. I know you have a full agenda tonight, so I'm not going to take much time, but I do want to show up on occasion just to say thank you and to report back a little bit on what your investment means to the incubator, to the community, to young businesses that are getting started. This year, we've had the opportunity to entertain guests from Green Bay and representative from Governor Evers' office, from the head of the WEDC came by. People look to Platteville now as a very successful incubator. And that's the work of many people before me and of the council and of the community. So that's, to me, I find that exciting when, can we come and see you? What is the secret? Oh, well, yes. And we show them our terrific tenants who are just brilliant and growing. We run on a very tight budget, as everyone does. But this last year, we brought in 10,000 more than we had planned to in income. And we spent 40,000 less than we planned to. So that's good. Tight budget, looking for bargains, spending where we can, in-kind services where we have the opportunity to. We've had over 80 graduates from the incubator, which is terrific. Last year, Los Amigos Tortillas started production, Starvell Prince, which does 3D, Morel Media, which is a marketing firm, Afghan Sewing Services, Vector Drone, which flies those little helicopters, and Schultz Technology, and we graduated at several people as well. So I think that's, important. We were actually featured by the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation at their annual meeting as one of the success stories, specifically focused on Carlos and Carolina's tortilla production, because they hit a constraint during COVID. They couldn't get tortillas. And so what does an entrepreneur and inventor do? They started a tortilla factory. And so that's up at the incubator too. So again, we thank the council for their support, and we'll be getting a new parking lot or assistance with our parking lot, which it's an expensive thing. Thank you. Thank you. We're happy to get rid of our potholes. Any questions from the council that I may answer? Oh, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, City of Platteville. I'll leave these in the back. Thank you.
Okay. Moving along to the consent calendar then, there are several items here that can be approved on a single motion and vote. We have the council minutes from March 28th. We have payment of bills. We have the financial report for March. Appointments to boards and commissions. Tonight I have appointments of Evan Larson and Bob Vosberg to their second terms on the Plan Commission, terms ending May 1, 2026. Paul Malishki to the Community Safe Routes Commission for a partial term ending 9/1/2025. Marcia Courts to the Freudenreich Animal Care Trust Fund for a term ending 5/1/2026. Kelly Sponsler to the Library Board for a term ending 5/1/2026. And Beth Frieders to the Historic Preservation Commission or Committee for a term ending 5/1/2026. We also have a street closing permit, North Court Street between St. Mary's Church and School and between West Adams and West Cedar for a parish family event on Thursday, June 29th from 3 to 10, put on by the St. Mary's Parish, and the announcement of the council organizational meeting of next Tuesday, April 18th at 5 p.m. Do I have a motion?
Second.
So we have a motion by Eileen and a second by Kathy to approve the consent agenda as presented. We'll vote. Candace?
Nichols, Cop,
Yes.
Arts,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Killian.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, this is the portion of the agenda for citizens' comments, observations, and petitions, if any. It's our procedure that if the item is on the agenda, we wait until that time. I have only had two types of green sheets turned in. One was about the Humane Society zoning, and the other is about the overlay. So those would be later. Any other so those are the only two I have. Anybody from council have anything? Otherwise, I would just give special thanks to all of the volunteers who conducted our recent election on April 4th. And special thanks to Candace, who's giving me a form right now, and Colette, as well as our DPW and Parks crew for their work before, during, and after the election. So there's always a lot of work to be done. Okay, let's move on then to the reports in the packet. First of those is the Housing Authority Board. Eileen? The water and sewer report were in your packet, the airport financial report, and department progress reports. Any questions? Any questions on department progress reports or any of those? Okay, then let's move along into the action items on the agenda. So we'll start with the Emmy Roth right of first refusal. Nicola.
Thank you. And I'm going to start this out, and then Joe has an item to add to this discussion and action. So in 2012, Emmy Roth entered into a development agreement with the city of Platteville, which included the purchase of an approximately 19-acre parcel, which was located in tax increment district number 6. The purpose of the development agreement was the construction of a manufacturing facility for making cheese, as well as a storage building and other site improvements. Based on the value of the constructed facility and the jobs created within it, Emmy Roth received the land for the nominal amount of $1 an acre. The development agreement was signed on April the 10th of 2012 and was accompanied by a construction deadline and repurchase agreement, the CDRA. The CDRA indicates that it was the intention of the city of Platteville to sell lands only for the purpose of development of industry and or business within the applied technology district. Emmy Roth expressed the intent to make improvements to the property in accordance with the city of Platteville zoning ordinance. Within the agreement, there were several stipulations which are included in the staff note that you have in front of you. And it says under the construction deadline paragraph that in the event that the buyer does not undertake expansion of the existing manufacturing and storage facilities before the 10th annual anniversary date of the development agreement between the seller and the buyer, the city may repurchase from the buyer that portion of the land conveyed to the buyer which has not been used for expansion of the buyer's manufacturing and or storage facilities or to support such expansion. And so this right of first refusal is the ability for Emmy Roth to be able to, if there was an offer to purchase on this parcel, that Emmy Roth would be able to have an opportunity to purchase the parcel. Since the construction or expansion did not take place, then the city is preparing to repurchase the expansion land. And I'm going to hand over to Joe, who has an update from the PADIC committee.
Right, so I attended the, excuse me, the PADIC board meeting last week, and they did have this item on their agenda for discussion. And they were in favor of the document. There's no concerns about that, but they did have a recommended change to the document. The right of first refusal has basically a deadline of 90 days from when it's issued to Emmy Roth, essentially. For them to make a decision and purchase a property. The board felt that was too long. They're recommending reducing that from 90 days to 30 days. I think their concern was that if the city has a buyer that's anxious to, acquire some property, things move pretty quickly nowadays, that if it takes 90 days, they might feel that's too long, and then they would basically walk away and look for a different source. So to try to alleviate that concern, the board would recommend reducing that. So it shows up twice in the document, the right of first refusal document, the first page paragraph that's labeled number 1, notice of offer, towards the end of that paragraph. And then it shows up again on page 2 of 4, paragraph labeled number 3, the revival would also be reduced from 90 days to 30 days. So that would be their recommendation. You don't obviously have to follow that, but that's what they would suggest.
Okay, questions of anybody on this? So basically, we're reclaiming property that we had originally, that Emmy Roth had originally thought that they would expand onto. They haven't done so. They had a deadline for doing that. So this is reclaiming that property and paying them, I believe it's $1. I think that's what they paid us. So I think we have to refund their $1, which should not be a big deal. And then basically this would say if somebody else comes and wants to purchase the land, we would tell Emmy Roth and they would have 30 days to, well, right now 90, the recommendation is to go to 30. Any questions? Questions of Joe? If this is to say 30 instead of 90, you would need to include that in any motion you might make. There's no questions. Do I hear a recommendation?
I have a motion.
Okay.
I move to approve the right of first refusal for 30-day period.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve this right of first refusal, changing the 90 to 30 as recommended by our Industrial Development Board, seconded by Lynn. Candace will vote.
Nichols? Cop?
Yes.
Arts?
Yes.
Parrot?
Yes.
Casper?
Yes.
Doss?
Yes.
Killian? Motion carries.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is the Freudenreich Animal Trust Fund Principal and Earnings Request.
Thank you.
Nicola.
Over the past year or more, Dr. Kerry Schaefer and supporters of the Grant County Humane Society have been searching for a suitable building to establish a separate site for the animal shelter. The shelter is currently located in a building shared with the Lancaster Veterinary Clinic, which is not adequate for the needs of the community. A very generous commitment has been made by a private donor to help fund the purchase of a suitable building. With this commitment, the group has now made an offer on a building in Platteville and needs to raise approximately $430,000 by May the 1st. Dr. Schaefer has been in discussion with the Freudenreich Animal Trust Fund Committee regarding use of the fund balance to support the building purchase. The committee is in favor of using the fund for this purpose. The use would be in keeping with the wishes of the benefactor, Miss Georgianne Freudenreich, who desired her bequest to be used to establish and maintain an animal shelter, and it would provide a beneficial service to the community. The city's agreement with the Community Fund of Southern Wisconsin indicates that although the fund was irrevocably transferred to the Community Fund, the fund principal balance may be spent for major animal-related expenses with a 2/3 vote of the Platteville City Council members present at the meeting. This language was most likely included to abide by the terms of the memorandum of understanding that was made between the city and the Georgine Freudenreich estate. If the council votes in favor of closing the fund and dispersing the proceeds to the Grant County Humane Society for the building purchase, a letter of request will be presented to the Community Fund Board of Directors. At January 31st, 2023, the available fund principal plus earnings was approximately $150,000. An additional $270,000 would be needed for the building purchase, and this amount is anticipated to be funded through fundraising and or financing. Ongoing expenses of the Humane Society may be offset through revenue generated from pet boarding, daycare, and a small retail space. With the establishment of this location for the Grant County Humane Society in Platteville, the Platteville Veterinary Clinic would no longer serve as the city pound for stray animals. Instead, these animals would be taken to the Humane Society. And for the council's information, as this came up at the last meeting, the city property taxes on the parcel were $9,291.04 for 2022. If the budget and fiscal impact of this action item would be that if the fund was dispersed in full and then closed, the funds would be distributed to the Grant County Humane Society and the Freudenreich Animal Trust Fund under the city's care would no longer exist. Questions?
Questions? So is the recommendation to do this when the specifically for this purchase of the building, when there's proof that there's enough money to buy the building?
That can be part of the motion. The sample motion, I don't believe includes that language, but that could be a part of how this motion would be made.
Carrie, you had registered. Did you want to speak at this part of or during the second one? Okay, so if anybody has questions. So, I mean, to me, we would ask for the funds when there was a guarantee that there was enough money to purchase the building instead of,
Yeah, I was gonna ask, primarily the same thing, so if the money is okay, and then if there is. Like does it get what is that profit? Get returned back, what happens to it?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch the question.
So if we authorize, we say, okay, the money can go to the said purchase, but the rest of the money isn't collected. What happens to the fund? Is it returned back? Is that language, is.
So then, we would, if that language was incorporated into the motion, then the funds would not be dispersed in the event that the building was not purchased. Does that answer the question? So then in that circumstance, if the building was not purchased and therefore the funds were not distributed, then the fund would continue to be under the city's care and it would continue to operate as it is currently functioning. I do believe, and Dr. Schaefer maybe could clarify this, that there has been, the offer has been accepted. Is that correct?
she would need to come to the podium. It's one thing to have an offer accepted. It's another thing to have the cash
Yes.
to fulfill the offer. So I
Doc-
guess that's kind of where I'm coming.
I was gonna have a question for Dr. Schaefer if she has a moment. Dr. Schaefer, I know you said in the past that a number of your colleagues are actually on this committee. Are part of the decision-making process
There's
already.
veterinarians also, yeah, there's veterinarians on it.
What's your plan if this would fall through? If we gave you the money now, what would be your plan for the money if this should fall through?
That's a great question. I guess I haven't considered that as a possibility. Like,
Yeah.
I'm pretty focused on getting the money.
Your group has been active in Grant County, working in this direction for how long then?
The Humane Society's been in existence for 8 years, almost 9. I would say we've been actively looking since 2019 for a building and growing the fund subsequently for the last 3 years. I've been in meetings every night for the last 10 days, pretty much. So if you wanted to say that there's a number of people that are quite focused on making the Humane Society or making it come of fruition. And that's in Lafayette. I have some people from Lafayette County that are meeting with me on Sunday. So honestly, since I started doing this 23 years ago, there's been a group of people thinking that this should be happening. So actively working, probably since 2019.
Questions right now, if somebody.
Anybody else have questions?
You know this person, this Miss Freudenreich at all?
I did not, no. I know that Jackie and Jeff both knew her well. And I've been talking with Jackie about this fund for a number of years. For a lot of years, at least a decade, just about where it came from and why it happened and what they could do with it. They were gonna build a building here in town and they couldn't afford that with the fund and.
I was gonna say, looking at the direction of the way this person was thinking at the time they gave the money, an organization such as yours, if it was in existence, probably would be holding it to start with, would be my guess.
It is exactly what she wanted, and she really wanted it in Platteville.
Yeah, if you actually read her will, I knew Georgianne. And if you actually read her will, it said to build a facility in Platteville. So is there? Kathy?
I don't have a question. I'm just trying to figure out how to address a motion. Let me take a stab at it. I'll make a motion to authorize use of the Fried and Rec Animal Care Trust Fund of it. I would like the building at the address 500 Business 151 in the city of Platteville to house the Grant County Humane Society through of the Fried and Rec Animal Care Trust Fund and disbursement of the principal and earnings to the Grant County Humane Society, at which time we are notified the full funding is available. Is that?
Yes.
I'll second it.
Okay, so basically all of that verbiage is, we're good with giving the money when we know that there's gonna be a purchase and it's gonna be of this facility in Platteville on Highway Business 151. Okay, is everybody clear with that? Candace, did you get the motion? Okay,
I believe so.
then we'll vote.
Nichols. Cop,
Yes.
Arts,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Killian.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next item on our agenda for action tonight is contract 4-23 business 151. The Fastenal, the storm sewer project by Fastenal. Howard.
Thank you. When the business 151 safety project took place, DOT and contractor found a buried and plugged storm sewer line. The line was connected to a previous storm sewer, but for whatever reason, it wasn't connected and the water must have bubbled out elsewhere. When the contractor connected the new storm sewer, they did a temporary cleaning of the line and created a rock lined hole. Right now, the water fills the hole, pours over onto the grass surface, flows through a tube under the Fastenal driveway, and then continues to the Roundtree branch. The owner of Fastenal was hoping that we could correct this so that they didn't have this rocky hole in there. It's less appealing, harder for them to maintain. We initially proposed a project. We found additional problems with the hole. The project was expanded. We did not adjust the budget. When we opened the bids, the base bid was almost twice the budget. So what staff is recommending is that we reject all bids and with the intent to carry over the tax funding to next year. But that part is not actually in the bid because that would be subject to future 2024 budgeting discussions. So right now, just the sample motion would be to reject all bids. If you have any questions, I'm here to.
Okay, questions on this? So it came in significantly over budget, so the motion would be to reject all bids and perhaps carry over this levy amount to next year, but of course it would be put right in with other things and prioritized. So there is no guarantee that this funding would be available for this project next year.
Correct.
I'll have a motion then to move to reject all bids.
Second in the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Todd, a second by Ken to reject all bids for this project, storm sewer project adjacent to Fastenal. Candace will vote.
Nichols. Cop,
Yes.
Arts,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Killian.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next we have contract 15-23, weed and grass mowing. Howard.
Yes, thank you. This contract would be for properties that require mowing due to non-compliance with our ordinance. For the past few years, there have been no bidders, So city staff was tasked to do the compliance mowing. This year we did have bids. And we received 2 bids, the low bidder being Holman Lawn Care, $80 per hour or $80 minimum per location. Holman, they purchased it from G Pro Lawn Care. We do not have any direct work history for this contractor, but we feel comfortable that they're continuing the work that G Pro has done. So we recommend approving for Holman Lawn Care.
Okay, questions on the weed and grass mowing contract?
That's mowing to Holman Lawn Care, the bid price of $80 per hour and $80 minimum per location.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this contract 1528 for weed and grass mowing. Candace will vote.
Nichols? Cop?
Yes.
Arts?
Yes.
Parrot?
Yes.
Casper?
Yes.
Doss?
Yes.
Killian?
yes,
Motion carries.
Okay, next we have the 2022 budget carryovers to 2023. Nicola.
Thank you. So each year, when the accounting for the prior year has been substantially completed, we review to see if any funds should be carried over to the current year from the prior year. And this can happen when there are projects that didn't complete. Sometimes it's weather related, sometimes supply chain issues. Sometimes there's funding in the general fund budget as well that may be desired to be carried over for a special purpose. And so we have made a summary in the supporting schedule of the requests for carryover. I went through those in detail last time. I won't do that again, but they are in the packet. Certainly feel free to ask me questions about any of those items. I will mention that there has been an adjustment and a correction since the last council meeting to the carryover list. And you'll see that we have added some carryover requests that were not in the schedule in the last meeting, and those are from the Department of Public Works and Parks and Recreation, and those are for from the Building and Grounds line item towards electrical upgrades in the office area at the streets garage. Also carrying over some excess budget in the material and supplies and outlay line items in the cemetery budget towards the cemetery mower in 2023, and then also $3,000 of capacity in the materials and supplies line item in Parks and Rec, forestry towards 2023 chipping costs.
Okay, anyone with questions? Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion for the carryover of $646,855 in CIP fund and $34,866 in the general fund per the attached schedule.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Eileen and a second by Kathy to approve this carryover, and Candace will vote.
Nichols? Cop?
Yes.
Arts?
Yes.
Parrot?
Yes.
Casper?
Yes.
Doss?
Yes.
Killian?
yes,
Motion carries.
Okay, the next item on our action agenda tonight is the swimming pool water tightness integrity proposal. Bob.
Yes, thank you. This information was first brought to the council in December. And was reiterated last week, including the information that the pool was redone in 1995. And the two pools that were there were combined, and has added a zero entry feature, which increased the capacity of the pool to 390,000 gallons. A properly maintained pool should last about 30 to 50 years. If in fact it is resurfaced on about the decade, each decade. Staff has no information that has been done, so that does need to be done. It's been common knowledge that the pool has had a leak for about a decade that we know of. This leak includes about 2 million gallons per year. The pool our size should use about 1 million, and we currently use about 3 million gallons. In November, staff had Andrew Pennekamp of JEO Consulting come and look at the pool. I should also note that the attempt to find the leak was made about a decade ago with cameras, and they could not find it at that time. Obviously, contractors have improved the method, and we're hoping that, in fact, that we can, with the help of Burback Aquatics and Rico Engineering, that we can find this leak. The 2023 budget fiscal impact, we have modified that a little bit of information, including the funds should come from ARPA funds as well as swim team revenues to come up with the 62,000 that would be needed for this evaluation. We have included a sample motion, including the fact that staff would be authorized to not spend more than 62,000 to find this for the water integrity test.
Okay, questions of Bob? Nicola, is this also a budget amendment? Is that what this would be too?
Yes, this would be a budget amendment because it was not a CIP project for 2023.
A question for Bob, I guess, if that's okay.
Sure.
This is just to find the problem, correct, Bob?
That is correct. There
What
will
would-
be some hydraulic valves that will be replaced just by taking them all apart. Those seals will be, so there is some minimal maintenance that will be needed to be done and will be included in that price.
Any guess as to what fixing some of this could cost?
No,
Future?
and that's the problem. We can't make a guess until we get the information of where the actual leak is. We suspect that it's in several places, including the gutters. So it's this test, though, will be a complete evaluation of where all the leaks are. So it'll
Thank
give
you.
us a real good idea.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The questions? All right, so this would take 52,000 of ARPA funds that had previously been allocated or earmarked for broadband.
Right.
With our current situation with broadband and expansion going on without city involvement, I think we feel comfortable taking 52 of that 75. So there's still a little left there. And then the swim team revenues are from sales and other things in a revenue account. So that would get us to the 62. Any other questions? Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve staff to hire an engineer and necessary contractors to complete a pool water tightness evaluation and repair plan not to exceed $62,000.
Okay, we have a motion by Ken and a second by Lynn to approve the budget amendment that gives $62,000 for this water swimming pool water tightness integrity proposal. We will vote. Candace.
Nichols? Cop?
Yes.
Arts? Parrot?
Yes.
Casper?
Yes.
Doss?
Yes.
Killian?
Yes,
Motion carries.
Okay, the last agenda action item tonight is the procedure for filling alderperson the District 3 position. Howard.
Thank you. We are certain now, City Clerk Kloss has said that the election is certified. So it is anticipated that the current alderperson for District 3, Barbara Doss, will resign as of midnight, April 17th, in order to take the oath of office for the position of alderperson District 2 the following day. The District 3 term expires in April of 2024, leaving a vacancy of about a year. In following past practices, staff recommends soliciting candidates to serve the remainder of that term. And I have a selection process and anticipated timeline based on those previous vacancies. The week of April 17th, the vacancy would be formally announced and a press release issued. Candidates would be asked to submit a one-page letter of interest due on May 12th. May 16th, council have a work session where candidates would be invited to make a 5-minute presentation, followed by 5 to 10 minutes of council questioning. May 23rd, council meeting, normal council meeting. A nomination is made and voted on by the council. The applicant takes the oath of office and joins the council. And then we're recommending that at the June 13th council meeting or after that meeting, there's a new member orientation for the new council person. Another approved option would be to schedule a special election, but we have not done so in recent memory. So staff is recommending the approval of the process and timeline.
Questions? Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to approve the selection process and timeline proposed by staff to fill the vacancy of the position of Alderperson District 3.
We have a motion by Kathy and a second by Eileen to approve this selection process. Candace will vote.
Nichols. Cop,
Yes.
Arts,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Goss,
Yes.
Killian.
yes,
Motion carries.
Okay, that concludes the action portion of our agenda tonight. The remainder of our agenda is information and discussion. The first item on our information and discussion is ordinance zoning amendment, remove the RLO overlay district at 1135 Perry Drive. Joe.
Yes, thank you. So the property at 1135 Perry Drive contains a single family home. Was recently purchased by the applicant. The applicant is a student at UW Platteville, lives there with 3 other students. They recently moved there. They got into a situation at their prior location where they were living with the tenant in the other half of their duplex. Became unlivable for them to stay there, so they need to find a different location to live until they graduate, which there's juniors, so they're anticipating would be spring of next year. So they were looking for a temporary living situation to allow them to finish out their schooling. They hired or were working with a local realtor to find some locations. We're having little luck. This property came up, so they jumped on it, moved in, and after that realized that the property does have the limited occupancy overlay district in place. So it's zoned R1, so the base zoning is the same as all other R1 properties in the city. But the overlay district places restrictions on the occupancy of that property. So in this case, a standard occupancy in the city, R1 and other districts, is a maximum of 4 unrelated individuals. The overlay district has a restriction that a maximum of 2 unrelated individuals. So as they sit right now, 2 of those residents would be legal, the other 2 would be illegal at that location. So once the owner found out about that situation, they did submit a rezoning request to have that overlay district designation removed from the property. So if that were approved, then it would go back to just a standard R1. So the 4 unrelated individuals would be allowed to live there, and they could continue to live there said until they would graduate, and then their anticipation would be the property would be sold at that point. So I've had obviously questions from the applicant, their realtor, and actually a few other people that were not aware of this overlay district. So they're curious as to how this came about and what the situation was. So just for a little background, this came about in 2012 through the efforts of the residents in, I guess, the western part of the city, basically from Stonebridge Road west. Had some concerns about development in that area and some other activity that they felt was heading their way. So they basically submitted a petition through the neighborhood to discover who would be interested in having this overlay district designation placed on their property. So this is all based on the petition that was circulated at that time. So if you notice the map of the district that's included in your packet, it's not a contiguous district through that whole area. There are some properties that are not included in there, and that's the reason for that is at that time, the council made a determination that they would only designate properties where the property owner was in favor of it. So it was basically those property owners that signed that petition. So those would be the ones circled in red. And then the ones that were not included did not sign that petition. It was also the consensus that time that anybody who was in the district that later changed their mind would have the ability to request to have that designation removed. So obviously the neighborhood started this process, and they are still in favor of having this designation, this overlay district in place. So they did, for this particular request this evening, they have submitted a petition against the zoning change. And on our rules that forces a supermajority vote of the council. So it's 3/4 of the council members voting on the change would have to be in favor of that change in order for it to take place. So in this case, we're assuming we'll have an opening the next meeting, so it would be 5 out of 6 would have to be in favor of the zoning amendment. So this did go to the Plan Commission at their April 3rd meeting. The Plan Commission kind of looked at it since it's kind of a temporary situation as far as the applicant. That they were looking for a compromise. So their recommendation was to keep the overlay district designation in place, but to allow the property owner, the applicant, to up to 2 years to achieve compliance. So with the idea that within that time period, they would graduate, property would be sold, and then it would go back to the previous situation. So that was their recommendation. Staff feels that's a good compromise in this particular situation, so we would also agree with that recommendation. So as I mentioned, this would be at the next meeting would be up for action. It will be a public hearing at that time.
Okay, any questions of Joe? Otherwise, the applicant for this is Mr. Devin Dockey, who has asked to speak. So Devin. I would say there was also one person who registered in favor, and that is a Paul Hallberg.
So I'm Devin. I bought the residence at 1135 Perry Drive there. Like I said, like Joe had said, it was a quick move out. We got into a situation where we're constantly victims of domestic violence, day in and day out. Couldn't sleep at night. So we decided it'd be best for us to go ahead and move. The property was really only listed for a couple days before we went in action. We never really looked into. It's not really standard practice to look into zoning when you're buying a residential house. I had no visits from any neighbors of any kind. I was never heard of such a thing when this come, and that's why I'm here tonight to speak in favor of just allowing us to live there for 2 years. And then I believe that makes everyone happy because they get to keep their overlay, and I get to live there for 2 years, and then I'll make sure the next owner knows about their.
Okay, any questions of Devin?
Just some background information you gave the planning council here a couple weeks ago. You moved out of a situation where you had a person, you were living in a house and the person in the basement had some problems and was threatening you all. None of the police calls to that residence were related to you or your friends.
No, it was mainly us calling. There was a lot of others when I went to pick up the police reports to search of my landlord at the time and kind of show her what was going on. That's when we discovered that it wasn't only us calling. They liked to fight outside at night. He always started up his car at 3 to 4 in the morning, and his car alarm always went off. So there was a lot of issues with that. So no, it wasn't. And there was a lot of other neighbors that were calling as well.
And you yourself purchased this property. There was,
Yes.
there's no we there. It's you and.
Yeah,
and
it's me
perhaps,
alone.
okay.
Okay, any other questions of Devon? Thank you.
Yep.
All right, I've had several people register against the removal of the overlay district, so I'm just going to read these names into the record. I've also had several people ask to speak, so we'll go to the registered against removing the district first. Tom Nichols, 1115 Perry Drive. Tom Young, 950 Kelly Avenue. Sylvia Karowski, 1230 Perry Drive. Kay Young, 950 Kelly Avenue. Danita Cartina. I don't know how to say the name, 1290 Perry Drive. Cartwright, that could be. Bonnie Vossen, 1170 West Hill. Diane Nelson, 520 Western. 1270 West Hill, Dwight Nelson. Jan Weber, 1285 Union. Deb Meese, 1265 Union. Melody Coppin, 1255 Perry. Matt Elman, 1230 Sunset. Deb Osting, 150 Moonlight Drive. Dick Rundle, 1270 Perry Drive. Tanya Wagner, 1155 Union Street. Brian Wagner, 1155 Union Street. Karen Rundle, 1275 Perry Drive. Those people registered against. And now I have the people who have asked to speak. We'll go there next. So the first person on that group is Jean Weber. Okay, then bring your group up. So we have Jean Weber and Tom Ostang and Mary Jo Hennessy and
maybe Terry
Kathy
Vossen,
Connett, and maybe Terry Vossen.
who had expected to be there, but he's got a grandchild doing a music event as we speak. Thank you very much for your time.
Introduce
Appreciate it.
yourself and give your
I got it.
address.
Gene Weber, 1285 Union Street. So today we are confronted with a very sad situation for everyone involved. A new neighborhood owner, a very nice and respected young professional, and I might add taxpayer, well-intentioned, apparently spent $250,000 for one of our homes. And his real estate agent, who is also a very nice, respected, and appreciated in our community. Unfortunately, neither the owner nor his representatives did proper due diligence and failed to make themselves aware of the overlay district restrictions, which are on the city website, which are on the walls of the city hall, and are fully available from city staff. The overlay district is an ordinance, just like alternate street side parking is, and fully enforceable. And fully enforceable by the city of Platteville. This is a buyer beware situation, and both he and his real estate representatives had and have a responsibility to be aware. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. This failure puts our city council in a situation where you all have to decide whether you want to support 110 tax-paying owners who literally have put in thousands of hours to get and keep this overlay district in place to assure single-family housing adjacent to Westview School, or support a buyer and a real estate agent who failed to check out the zoning. Owners of 100% of the adjoining property have officially signed protesting this zoning change request. In addition, we have petition signatures from another 70 neighbors, and I'd be glad to pass this around or leave it here as I leave, whatever you prefer, folks, but there's 70 additional signatures here. And the only reason there's not more is we had Easter weekend and we will be finishing up our signature gathering in the following week or so, but certainly before the next council meeting. At this time, not seeing Terry Vossen, I will cover the compromise that our group is suggesting. The short-term compromise we would propose, because we recognize these talented young men have some important work to do to complete this coming month. We are not asking that the owner vacate the home he has purchased. We are simply proposing that the buyer remain in the home with one other non-related person. This is the overlay district requirement. It's the law in Platteville. The solution will require two of the current residents to find other housing. We would ask that June 1st of 2023 be the compliance date for this action, possibly as late as 1 September if the council feels this is not precedent setting. As you set this compliance date, please keep in mind that the next buyer and real estate agent that fails to do their due diligence, the group that moves in may be more like the folks that caused these fellas to leave their last residence. So be cautious, please, with whatever precedent you choose to set. We respectfully disagree with the city staff compromise proposal as it would set an untenable precedent. The new owner has shared he does not require rent from his roommates, so he would not incur any additional financial loss. This solution acknowledges that sometime to secure other housing will be needed by a couple of the fellas. And two, by having the owner and one other non-related person reside in the home, the owner of the property would simply be in compliance with the zoning that's in effect there. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Tom Osting. Thank you very much.
My name's Tom Osting. I live at 150 Moonlight Drive, which is in the overlay district. I've lived there for 30 years. And I'm of the opinion that removing the overlay district designation for this property or allowing an extended violation beyond the proposed compromise date that Jean just mentioned would set a bad precedent that the council would be held to in the future. It could encourage non-compliance. Other buyers or real estate agents would expect the same exceptions that you would grant this person in the future. They might say, the council did it for this person, they should do it for us too. They could claim that you're being unfair. Another owner shared that their real estate agent required them to sign a paper that they were aware of the overlay district. So it's not that real estate agents haven't been doing this. Those that have are complying with the law. Another real estate agent shared that it's their responsibility to tell their clients about this overlay district. So we do have real estate agents who are aware of it and are telling their clients about it. Mostly important though, what you would do if you agree to this change would be to lose the trust of 110 taxpayers, many of which were signed that petition that Gene was referring to. A tour of the overlay district, if you took one, I'm not mentioning this to the city council. If you ever took a tour of the overlay district, and I'm sure you are familiar with the area, it would be very clear that the ordinance that was established in 2012 is working. It's doing exactly what the ordinance was trying to do. Its intended purpose is being met, namely, that it's trying to keep the area family oriented, aesthetically pleasing, a quiet neighborhood, attractive to any new family seeking to establish roots in Platteville. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Mary Jo Hennessy. I live at 1195 West Hill Avenue, and I have lived in the Westview School area since 1984, and probably plan on staying there until I'm dead or I'm in the nursing home. So I love that area. I always have, and I always will. So I guess after going to the compliance meeting, I felt pretty defeated because I think we lost our focus in that meeting, and it became a debate about student housing and not about the zoning issues. So I guess I want to just repeat that. This is about zoning and not the problems with university housing. So it's my understanding that city staff recently had a meeting about the housing situation in Platteville, and especially the lack of single family homes. And so back in 2012, our residents in the Westview area being proactive and formed an overlay district to protect the status of the single family homes. We did not want to become like Cedar Street and other streets near the university that became mostly rental and the families moved out. In the past couple of years, one house over on Western Avenue went from R2 to R1, which is what I think the city would like to see. A couple of the new owners moved into our area to get away from housing problems in other areas of town. And then we've also in the last few years had several young families move into the area, which is great. And it's nice to see a transition in the last few years. And since we've been out educating people and promoting the overlay district, more people are interested in joining the district, and we will deal with that at a different time. So as you can see by the number of people here tonight and the people who have registered their displeasure with this possible changing of zoning, we like our neighborhood and we want to continue to maintain our single family homes. We know that this current situation was not on purpose or intentional, but it did happen. So to repeat, our compromise is for Mr. Dahlke. He can continue to live at 1135 Perry Drive for as long as he wants to. And he can have one non-related housemate. That would put him in compliance, and he would not suffer any financial problems because he told us in the last meeting that he does not charge rent to any of his roommates. Thank you.
My name is Kathy Connett. I live at 110 Moonlight Drive. And if you look on that little map, you'll see that 110 Moonlight Drive is not in the overlay district. We didn't know that. We didn't know there was one. I don't particularly have any objections to somebody having more than one roommate. Done that myself. I was a college student once. But this is a residential area for families. And if you haven't looked to buy property in this city recently, go do that. It took us the better part of a year to find a place to live that was not, 4 bedrooms, 8, whatever. It was a very difficult search to find the house that we found. It's resolving it by saying, well, okay, we'll just let you do this till 2025, whatever it is. That sounds to me like my daughter saying, oh, Mom, just this once? No, not this once. There's a law. It says you cannot do that in that property. And so you need to enforce the law. It's just as simple as that.
I don't think we're going to take questions from the council. I've got several more people who want to speak. Okay, Josephine Kisher has asked to speak. Josephine. Pardon? Okay, you had checked speak against, so I will change that. Okay, what did you tell me this said? Siri Jenkins had asked to speak.
Hello, everyone. I'm Siri Jenkins, and I'm the neighbor. I live at 1145 Perry Drive. A little bit about my search for Platteville housing for 2 years. I searched the whole city trying to find something that an old person, I'm going to be 70 soon, that could live in on a 1-story and not be surrounded by college students. So you imagine my dismay when I find out I have 4 college students living next door. I was a bit put out. I don't have any objection to them purchasing a home. But as a person who held a real estate license and a broker's license for over 20 years, there's been a great injustice for this young man. Because you're supposed to know where you're selling and what you're doing. That's how you're licensed. So I guess I'd like to say I'm not negative to having the new neighbors. But what I don't want is my peace and serenity interrupted. If you haven't driven on my street, it's 2 blocks long, no curb and gutter, and no sidewalks. It's very, very peaceful. Children on bikes, people on bicycles, walking their dogs, and it's a really nice place for an old person to be. So I would just ask that the new owner not say, well, you have to change things for me because I was at a bad situation. Well, there's a lot of bad situations in this whole city I'm sure we're not aware of, but people handle them responsibly. So I do want my neighbors to stay. I just don't want my peace and serenity interrupted. I don't know how 4 college students will accomplish that for me. As a brand new homeowner in Platteville, I'm hoping that the council will recognize why we want this overlay and why we're going to ask him to comply. Understanding that his realtor and he made a mistake, and it was a snap purchase, which a lot of purchases are right now. They happen overnight. The property wasn't even on the market 48 hours. It went right into pending. So I'm sorry that he's into this situation, but really, if you ask yourselves, we didn't create the situation. We have an overlay for a reason. And do you know that deer come in my backyard at 6 at night? I don't want all that disrupted. That's why I want to be there. So please don't make this an exception, which could become the rule. Thank you.
Okay, I have one other person who's registered to speak, and that would be Bev Johansson.
I am Deb Johansson and I live at 170 Preston Drive, which has an overlay district. And I guess as I was sitting here thinking about this, everybody said just about the things that I would have said. But one thing to look at is you've got people who have lived there for 20, 30, or maybe more years. Yeah, college students come through this community cycling, every 3 or 4 years, another group is through. And I think we really need to think about the long-term people, just the short term. Much as I had 4 college students, I love college students. I advise a college group at the university. They're wonderful, but there is a rule and probably should be followed.
Okay, that concludes the green sheet that I have on this particular topic. Are there questions now of Joe or just questions of the council in general?
I guess I do, how would, the, the allocational, not to change, not to allow the variance, but to extend the, till the June 1st or September 1st. How would that work? I mean,
This is an ordinance, so it's a violation of an
right,
ordinance.
but would the city have to, would there be something in writing acknowledging you're
Sure.
in violation and you have 60
90
days
days
or
or whatever
90
to
days
comply.
or whatever to,
Any ordinance violation, we would submit a notice of violation and, whether it's property maintenance or other, and then give a due date to achieve compliance. Same process.
I guess my comment is I would be concerned of making a change. I think the neighborhood has spoken very clearly. I think it's a very unfortunate situation. But I also would be concerned that down the road, who is the next person that's going to be coming in asking for a change? And if we allow it one time, then, I wasn't on the council when that ordinance went into effect in 2012, but I know from experience that when a new ordinance is presented to the council, there's a lot of research and information given to the council to make those decisions. I don't see that decision should be overturned.
And do you have a?
I just had one question. I drove by the property today. I noticed a bunch of gravel at one spot. It looked like they were going to make a parking location or 1 or 2 parking locations there. Is that the situation that you expect?
Yes, they obtained a building permit to expand their driveway.
And so are they gonna blacktop that area or cement that area or leave it as gravel?
It's the gravel would be temporary. They'd have by ordinance, it's up to 6 months to hard surface it.
6 months to do what?
To hard surface it.
Hard surface, okay.
Any other questions?
So, is there any way that, because the biggest concern that I heard from all the residents were that they're afraid that this is going to create a slippery slope, that there's going to be, is there any way, saying if we would look at the compromise, is there a way to word it so that future people, future things, like there is absolutely no way that we're not going to have any compromise in the future? Like, okay, this is how it's going to be going forward.
You would say, you're saying, is there a way to say this is any compromise would be non-precedent setting? I don't know. I guess we would have to figure that out. I don't know if there would be specific wording. This is a one-time and a one-time only deal, or I don't know.
well, along the line of what Jason was saying, I was thinking, at the end of the day, it started with the realtor not being well informed or using that as a reason. The young man unfortunately, got caught up into. And so on one end, I feel really bad for that group, but how do we, protect our residents and our college students and from realtors that just overlook them? So I guess on that end, I would be more concerned about how we would do that.
This is a question for you, Joe. How do you intend to prove that there are more than two people living there unrelated? I guess number one. Number two, are you gonna serve them some sort of administrative search warrant? Number three, then you're gonna ask for a writ from the court system to have the sheriff enter the premises and remove people? Is that the way this will go if there's no compliance?
We would use whatever means necessary, I guess, and able to investigate that. Typically look at vehicles parked there, driver's license, where those vehicles are registered and what name they're in. If there's a lease, we look at the names on the lease. I will tell you, we do have to investigate overcrowding situations. And it's in a situation when you know there's overcrowding, it's very difficult to prove overcrowding.
That's why I asked.
No, I think you can't. Hold it for the next time. Okay, any other questions of the council? Okay, if council members have other questions of Joe or of Jean, are you the spokesperson for this group? Okay, so if anybody has specific questions of the overlay, those who have signed up to be in the overlay district, you can funnel those questions to Joe or we'll get them to Jean if you need answers. Does that sound reasonable? This will be on the agenda next time as a public hearing, since the original request was to remove the residential overlay district. So it has to go to public hearing because it's a law. The request is to change the law. Right. Okay, any other questions? Then we'll move on. Thank you all for attending. I assume I'm going to see a mass exodus. Okay, I'm only going to give you a couple minutes here because we have a couple more items on the agenda. I knew this would happen.
Plus a zoning. Just like he did. Yep. There's an application. There's an application that you'd have to fill out. I can get it. It's on our website, but I can get it to you. Just contact me.
I'm just hanging it all on. Just hanging it all on the face. I'll talk to you later. Okay, the next item on our information agenda tonight is a conditional use permit. Humane Society Kennels at 500 East Business Highway 151. We touched on this on another agenda item tonight, but Joe will go now with the conditional use permit.
Right, so that, as already mentioned, the property that the Humane Society has accepted offer on is at 500 East Business Highway 151. So that's where they would locate the Humane Society, which would include kennels. Under our zoning ordinance, kennels at that location is a conditional use. So it does require approval of conditional use permit. So the typical items that we look at for a conditional use like that is the specific location, that use at that location. Is it going to be a problem? In this case, I think the main concern would be potential noise from barking dogs. But if you're familiar with the property, it's a very large property. It's got a lot of vacant land surrounding it. Actually, the property's 4.5 acres. The building is 11,664 square feet, so it'd be significantly larger than where they're at. It would be more than capable of handling the anticipated number of animals that they had talked about. There's obviously already parking available for visitors and employees. So I think it does in all respects that I can see seems to be a good location for that proposed use. So staff would have no concerns regarding that location. The Plan Commission also considered this at their April meeting and recommended approval of the request. Any questions?
Okay, questions on conditional use permit for the property at 500 East Business Highway 151. Joe, neighboring properties have been advised?
Correct. Yeah,
And have you heard from any of the neighboring property owners?
I have not.
Carrie's here. Does anyone have questions?
I
Kathy?
just want, see it in writing, but I just want to confirm that the outdoor area will be fenced in.
That's part of their proposal.
Okay, because my concern is the trail is right there so that the animals are contained. That's,
I believe the past discussion of the planning commission, they talked about having visual blockage as well as sound blocking membranes on their fences to prevent any of the conflict, as they find the conflict isn't good for the animals at the shelter either.
Not good
So I
for the
think
people
that's-
or the animals. Carrie, do you want to come up and address that?
Yeah, I'm Carrie Schaefer, Lancaster. Yeah, that's a very big concern of ours as well. Sound control for the animals and the humans. We won't have the animals be visible from the trail, or the trail be visible to the animals. There may be a fence close to it. We have envisioned putting a scrolling digital screen on the fence so that people going by can see the little pictures of the animals' faces as they as they walk and go. It's gonna be all over. So no, we're working with a company, Acoustic Block it's called. You'll see this kind of membrane on tennis courts, in schools. They have indoor sound abatement stuff as well as outdoors. So
What do you do as far as smell?
smell is important, or the lack thereof. HVAC. We'll have separate HVAC units as best we can retrofit to the building. John's nephew is an HVAC man, Chris Myers. When you walk in, you don't want to smell anything but the candle that's burning on the front desk. So we're well aware. I'd like to describe the building as being like a large bathroom, easy to clean and no odor. You want to control water, you want to control odor, and you want to control sound. We built a building in Lancaster, our clinic has, so we're pretty aware of what we need to do going forward to make it not smell and not be noisy and be beautiful and healthy and happy for the animals, as well as the humans that visit.
And outside, you're gonna have. how many-
Outside is outside. I mean, you're outside. Sure, you remove all the excrement and everything other, the same, but you're walking in a trail in the middle of the woods in a town. I mean, I've been on the trail. I don't think the Humane Society is going to be the odor issue.
And Carrie, I would say that if anybody here wants to see the kind of facility that you have operated, they could visit your clinic in Lancaster.
Absolutely, yeah.
Any other questions?
No,
Jason?
but I just want to say that we got all 3 of our cats from the Humane Society, and it's a great building up there. It's great facility, great people to work with, so.
You.
Good. All right, Joe, is this also a public hearing? Because it's
Yes.
a conditional use permit.
Yes.
So this will be another public hearing at our next meeting on April 28th, 25th. Okay, let's move on to the next information and discussion item, which is resolution to authorize release of citations.
Yeah, so this is related to numerous properties, 11 properties in the city that are owned by Dave Denisi, who's a landlord. These properties have now been turned over through court action to a guardian service. In the past, due to property maintenance violations, the city has issued numerous citations against these properties, trying to achieve compliance. Luckily for us, I think the guardianship has taken control of those properties. They're working diligently to get them cleaned up, listing them for sale, trying to get them into hands of other property owners that will fix them up and return them to their preferred status. But due to the number of citations and the amount of other debt that is on these properties, there's some lender debt. I believe there's some back taxes. There's some liens against the properties. It's becoming more difficult for them to sell these properties. So the attorney working with the guardian is asking, well, they've approached the city, but my understanding is they're working with the other lien holders as well to try to get everybody to essentially release the amount of the liens against the property to encourage the sales of these properties to go through. So that's what they have. In our situation, it's related to these citations. It's approximately 765 that have been issued from 2020 to 2023. And I'm not certain on that date, because if you look at CCAP, for whatever reason, they listed some of them as Grant County versus David Denisi, even though it's city of Platteville. But Grant County also has some cases against him. So I didn't want to go line by line against 765 entries. So that was my best guess. So I'm still working to try to determine kind of what our investment into this whole situation is. It's primarily staff time, which we don't really track, but the big part would be our attorney's time in processing the citation. So I'm trying to get a better feel for that. I'm trying to also get a better feel for what's the overall debt on these properties, or the liens against the properties, to see how the whole picture works. So I'm hoping to get some additional information before you vote on this situation. So if you got anything else, I guess, that you'd like to know, let me know and I'll try to track that down, but I'm still working on getting some additional information from the realtor, the attorney, and the guardian service.
Okay, questions of Joe?
Joe, I got a question. How much money have we spent thus far, an estimate, if you could come up with, for issuing these 765 citations, doing the inspections, doing the documentation required? What are we looking at as a bill here ourselves?
Right, that's one item that I'm trying to
Pretty
get my arms
substantial, I
wrapped
guess.
around. Yeah.
And where do we sit as, if these properties are sold by this company, or sold by a sheriff's auction, where do we sit in terms of getting our money? Are we at the front of the line in regards to this citation issue, or are we at the back of the line?
I'm not sure if it's a typical sale. I think we're kind of fall behind the lien holders as far as the lender, I think would be the first of the list. But I'm not sure, since we've gone through court action and they've been found guilty, that kind of changes the lineup a little bit.
Okay.
I'm also trying to get a better feel for that. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of people involved, so I'm not sure at this time, but that's
And three,
part of what I'm trying to figure out.
And three, I've known Dave Denisi since 1991. Does he have any children, any relatives, anyone that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
And he's in a medical facility, so he's not capable. So that's the main reason the guardian got involved.
Are some of the liens put on his property by the medical facility?
I believe so, but I'm not sure of that either.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Ken?
My question is that if the properties are sold how are they going to be improved? What's going to be done as far as requiring that they be improved? Or will they be just passed on to somebody that's going to treat them as a property that is not improved very much? So what are we going to have as far as any requirement, as far as extent of improvement of the property? Are we going to have the same thing that we had before we sold them?
Yeah, I mean, through this process, we do not have any ability to put limitations on it. Our only recourse would be, once they're sold, if they're not improved, we go back to, issuing citations until compliance is achieved.
So who's going to go in and do the inspection as far as the amount of work that is done to make it an acceptable property?
Well, it would be the same process we follow for any property maintenance inspection. We do a review of the condition of the property, exterior only. We don't do interior inspections. So it'd be exterior improvements that would be needed to meet the ordinance.
Well, my question is mainly pertaining to the interior. See what the interior looks like.
Yeah, until
It's
they,
not only the outside, but it's the interior also.
yeah, until they obtain a building permit or they have a tenant that is living there that files a complaint regarding the conditions, we would not be doing an interior inspection.
So it sounds like to me that the property could just deteriorate again in the future.
Well, that's a potential with any property in the city, so this one really doesn't stand out in that regard, but we're hoping, since somebody's taking the investment to purchase them, they're doing that for a reason, so we're optimistic that they would improve the properties in due course.
Is there anyone currently living in any of the properties? Any tenants?
There are a couple that have not been vacated yet, which have not been put up for sale. That's been part of the challenge, is they've had people living there without a lease, basically squatting in the properties. So it's been a challenge for the realtor and the guardian service to get the properties vacated.
So Joe, this is really a request for us to say, we issued 765 citations. You owe us money, but we're saying you don't owe us any money.
Basically,
Is that what you're
yes.
asking us to do?
Right, yeah. So, I mean, our intent from the beginning was, we didn't do this as a money-making venture. It was to force the sale of the property. So it's achieving the goal. It would be ideal if we could get some money back to cover part of our investment, but that was not the intent of going through the whole exercise. It was to force the sale of properties. So in that regard, we have achieved what our initial goal was. Just not in the way we initially anticipated.
Anybody else with any other questions? I hate to be the only one that releases. I wouldn't mind releasing, but I'd like others to feel the same pain.
Right.
I agree with Barb. I don't know why we would step up and be the first with other groups, of course, lining up and trying to get money out of the situation. I just don't know what it does for our taxpayer base, and we paid for so much of this. And I think driving by 375 West Adams, I don't know what's going on there, but when I drive by the Dubuque landfill is more cleaned up at night. So yeah, we definitely need to do something,
Yeah, and that's one of the properties that does not have a lease.
People are squatting.
Mhm.
Okay. This is not a public hearing.
Correct.
And Joe, you will try to bring us additional information.
Correct.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Otherwise, I would be looking for one more motion. Oh, nope, one other thing first. The 18th, next week on Tuesday night, we have the organizational meeting. That is at 5, not 6, and it should be a short meeting. The second thing is next Thursday night, the 20th of April. We have a meeting that's open to the public, so anybody can come. All the townships have been invited. certainly the council's been invited. Anybody is invited to come and hear a presentation, I believe by Five Bugles and Kramer Brothers on the schematic design and the new estimate of costs related to schematic design of the fire station. So tell anybody and everybody that that's available. We will be working in the next week to make sure that we can at least stream it, probably not allow people to voice in, so it won't be a Zoom thing. So if you can't come, you can at least see it. Okay, so that's
That
next.
meeting here in
Two.
the chambers.
And the meeting on Thursday is at 6 or 5? 6.
20th is at 6.
It's at 6 on the 20th. It's at 5 on the 18th.
Both are here in the
Both
chamber?
are here.
Okay.
Talk about the loud at the library fundraiser.
We did not talk about that. The Loud at the Library fundraiser is in 2 weeks,
On the 22nd. And
22nd
they
of
still
April.
need some volunteers with, bartending and,
Volunteer bartenders.
yeah.
Oh, excuse me, I didn't look out there. It's a way to get more community service though, okay? All right, anybody with anything else? Eileen? Yes,
All right, motion to adjourn.
Second.
did you want to second it yourself too? I don't think that's legal.
Yeah.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adjourn this meeting with thanks to our 27-year veteran here. Candace will vote.
Nichols.
Yes.
Cop.
Yes.
Arts.
Yes.
Parrot.
Yes.
Casper.
Yeah.
Doss.
Yes.
Killian.
Yes,
Motion carries.
what's the